Okay, guess we'll start the show. Good afternoon and welcome to the virtual spring open house update for Montgomery Place from Transit Valley Line Southeast. This presentation is presented by Transit and the City of Edmonton, and my name is Isabel. Special welcome to the residents of Montgomery Place, where we thank you for taking the time to log in today and just join us for this presentation for an update. So just a little bit of housekeeping here. This presentation is being recorded and I will share it with some of the staff from Montgomery Place. So in case there's somebody who did not attend today who would like to watch it later on, you can. And if you would like to submit a question or a comment, we will be taking them for the duration of the presentation. So if you're on your phone or tablet, if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A. If you tap on that, then you should be able to submit your question or comment. And if you're using your desktop or your laptop, you just need to exit the full screen mode and go to your top left corner, and you'll see a Q&A right here. And if you click on that, you'll be able to submit a question or comment. And once again, we're taking questions and comments throughout the duration of the presentation, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. And on the call today, we have from the City of Edmonton, Michelle Ponich, who is from the Community Relations Department. Michelle has a quick update here for us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. As Isabel said, my name is Michelle and I'm here on behalf of the City of Edmonton. We realize that you may have expected for ETS and parking management to join us this afternoon, but unfortunately they're unable to be here. Should you have any ETS or parking questions, please feel free to reach out to ETS via 311 or parking management via email at epark@edmonton.ca. That's EPARK@edmonton.ca. Or if it's more comfortable for you to ask your question during the Q&A portion of today's presentation, we'd be happy to take it back to the prospective areas at the city and get an answer for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And from the Transit side, we have Eric Marcotte, who is the Alstom Rail Testing and Commissioning Manager. We have Dallas Linskog, who is the Transit Communications Manager. And the voice that you're hearing right now is me, Isabel Onaba. I am the Transit Communications Coordinator. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Dallas.
Great, thanks Isabel, and welcome to Montgomery Place, and welcome to anybody that's found us online after the fact. As Isabel mentioned, she's recording this presentation, so we'll put it up on social media platforms and various, our website and so on, place for people to see that. So if there's something you are hearing live that you like and you want to share with your family, you can do that through that means as well. So those of you that found us that way, thanks for clicking on the link and thanks for spending the time with us as well. This will probably take about an hour. It all kinds of depends on how many questions we get from you, but we are really happy to meet with you today virtually. It's not like it was a few years ago. I can recall meeting with Montgomery residents at the facility there, and I enjoyed that, and I miss being able to do that. But we are living in a different world right now with COVID, and the best and safest way for us to meet with you and give the information is to do it online. So again, just thanks for joining us. A quick overview on the project for those of you that may not know. It is a public-private partnership, so we call that a P3. With the City of Edmonton, they are our main partner. We as Transed make up are made up by 4 different companies: Bechtel, Ellis Dawn, Alstom, and Fengate are the 4 companies that make up Transed, and we are a joint venture constructing it, and we will also operate the train for the next 30 years as well. So we're in it for many, many more years to come, and we're really proud of what we've been building and really proud to share it with you today, give you an update, and super excited to be welcoming passengers on board later this year. And we'll talk more about that as we go along in the presentation today. On your screen is just a quick map. I'm sure you're probably fairly familiar with the route. Of course, there's a portion of it in the dead center that's elevated. Most of it is integrated with the street. It's a low floor system, which means the trains literally ride a little closer to the ground. That allows the stop platforms to be closer to the ground as well. They're effectively at the same height of a curb or a sidewalk. That allows for step-free boarding and easy access onto the train. There's no ramps to get up and down onto the vehicle itself. Getting onto the stop platform itself is quite easy as well, just a very gentle and low ramp that leads up to that height of the sidewalk, like I mentioned. So those stops, there's 11 of them along the entire alignment in this phase. We'll show you some photos of them in the presentation here as well. We have a couple more significant stops. One of them is the Davie stations. We'll show you photos of that in a second here as well. There's a large park and ride at that facility as well, about 1,300 stalls for people to park their cars and hop on the train. And then there's also another connection point to the Capital Line and the Metro Line in downtown Edmonton, and that is at something we call the Churchill Connector, and that is a building that we've constructed in the southeast corner of Churchill Square, right across from City Hall, and that will give elevator, escalator, and stair access to the existing Churchill station. So you'll be able to take the Valley Line right outside your door at the Strathern stop, head down into the River Valley, across the river, through the tunnel, up onto 102nd Avenue. You can hop out at Churchill Square and enjoy the festivals down there, or hop onto the Metro Line or the Capital Line and reach a lot of different areas of the city through that connection. So this is really going to increase the mobility for Edmontonians, and we're just really excited to be part of that. The next slide here is just a photo of the oh, I forgot. I'm going to take you through the agenda. So I'm going to take you through a construction update. I was just about to dive into that because I love talking about where we're at. But I'm going to take you through some of the highlights of what's been happening in the last 6 months and what's going to happen for the next most of the year, particularly in and around 95th Ave and Montgomery Place. I'm then going to hand it off to Eric. He's going to give you a bit more of an overview of what does it take to test this train and make it safe and operational for the public before we welcome passengers on board. And that's a really interesting topic. I think you'll find that really engaging and interesting. He's going to then hand it off to Isabel. She'll come back on here again, and she's going to take you through some of the safety messaging and what we're doing to educate the public. That's the drivers, the pedestrians, cyclists, scooters, all these various modes of transportation, and educating them on how to interact with the train in a safe manner. So we're excited to share that with you as well. And then the favorite part is really the question and answer. So I really encourage you to reach out with your questions through the presentation. We'll answer them at the end. Maybe if you're not really great at using the devices, there's somebody near you that can do that for you, or type the question in on your behalf. But we really welcome any questions that come to us, and we'll do our best to answer them today. So now I'll dive into the construction update. The photo you're about to see, you can skip to the next one, Isabel. We'll come back to one just like that at Montgomery in a second. But the Dewatnow Bridge. So this is obviously the signature bridge crossing the North Saskatchewan River, very close to completion. We've done all of the concrete work to build the bridge structure itself. We completed that last year. So you see that in the photos here. I can tell you that the rail is entirely installed across the bridge. In fact, I can tell you that the rail, all 13 kilometers of the rail, is fully installed along the alignment. In addition to that, the overhead catenary poles that hold all the wires that power the train. Eric's going to talk more about that in detail. But I can tell you that all of those poles are installed on the bridge, as well as the 13 kilometers of the alignment. So that's another huge milestone for us that's done. On the Dewatnow Bridge, specifically right now, though, if you were to head down there, you'll see us installing the steel hangers that will support the underslung SUP, or shared use path, that provides the pedestrian and cyclist connection across the river and reestablishes that connection that used to exist before this new bridge was installed. So that work is ongoing. I'd like to talk about at this location, there's a lot of work to do when it comes to landscaping and park restoration. So you can see in the photos, at least in the one on the right on the far side, you can see the tunnel portal, but you can see a lot of construction trailers and activity down below the bridge. That's one of our 2 laydown yards for the Dewatnow Bridge. That has to be removed this year once the ground thaws, and we have to come back in and reestablish the Louise McKinney Park on that side and Henrietta Muir Park on the south side. That will take us some time as well. There's some grading, we call it, which is just moving the dirt around a little bit. A bit more work to do when it comes to slope stabilization, which is installing some riprap and just some final details to our design. And then that allows us to reestablish the trail connections through the River Valley. And I know that's a really important connection that Edmontonians have been waiting to get back. It's been a few years now that we've been building this bridge, so we're working hard this summer to get that opened by the end of the summer and reestablish that pedestrian crossing over the North Saskatchewan. Moving on to the next slide, another highlight along the alignment is our Davie Station. So I talked about this at the beginning. This is where the transit center and park and ride is located. We are very close to having this building completed. You can see from the photos there that the exterior finishes are well underway, just about completed there. I could say the same thing for the interior finishes. We're at a point now where it's putting on the paint and the finishing touches to make it look beautiful and get it ready for passengers. You can see some of the art glass as well that's installed on the station there. There's a lot of public art, and we'll show some of that to you today along the alignment, but this is just one example at the Davie Station. And I encourage you, if you get the chance at some point, it's a little harder now because it doesn't get dark till later, thankfully. But when you see that lit up from the lights on the inside shining through that art, it looks just fantastic. So really proud to be involved with the Edmonton Arts Council to install the art that they've selected. They've worked closely with the artists. We come in and do the installation on behalf of the city. It's a really good relationship and partnership there as well. Next slide. I think we're going to dive now into 95th Avenue and talk a bit more specifics. So what you're seeing on the screen now, you've probably seen as you've gone for walks in your neighborhood, that is the Strathern stop, looking very completed, as you can tell from that photo. Some of the work then that's remaining in and around the stop, and this kind of applies to all of our 11 stops along the alignment, is the electrical work. So in that photo, you can see some of those shiny electrical cabinets. That's where a lot of the cables come and are terminated. There's a lot of electrical connections to make inside those terminals. So all winter, we've been pulling cables through underground conduits and in some cases above ground, and we are very, very well into that process to the point where now it's coming down to a lot of the final connections. A lot of that work you don't get to really see. It kind of happens a bit more, I don't want to say behind closed doors, but in a way it kind of is behind closed doors with those cabinets. But a lot of that work has been going on this winter, and it's kept the crews busy, and it's allowed us to be at a state where we can really dive into the testing and commissioning, which we've begun and which Eric will talk about here shortly. So other things along these platforms, you can see that the stop steel shelters is installed. We have a little bit more finishing work. You can see on the ceiling there, the soffit or the underside of that roof has to be installed still, but a lot of that beautification work has been done. The glass for the shelters, as you can see in the photo, is installed. The doors are in. Something important to note here that's not common on the rest of the LRT alignment in the city, on the Capital Line and the Metro Line, is that on the Valley Line, our stops are enclosed and heated. So really attractive for winter commuters for sure. I won't talk about the OCS cables. I'm sure Eric's going to talk about that in a bit, but you can see those, of course, in the photos too. Next photo, please, Isabel. All right, let's talk a little bit about road work. So 95th Avenue, as I'm sure you all recall, 2019 was the year of close the road and get it built, and we were successful in doing that. It's really not changed a whole lot as far as the road work since that time. We've been really focusing on the track and everything occurring in the middle of 95th Avenue. We do need to come in this year and do some of the last of the paving work in a few localized areas, very small areas, very low impact. In a lot of cases, perhaps all of the cases, that'll happen at night as well. So you should not expect to see any real significant traffic disruptions, if any, along 95th Avenue this year. So we're working hard to maintain our commitment that we made to the neighborhood in 2019 to substantively complete the work at that time, and that is what we were successful in doing. But expect to be seeing some of that final work happening this year. Some of that final work, I think, is in the next photo, which is to do with landscaping. Wait, make sure I got my memory correct. Oh, I guess I'm wrong. We'll come to landscaping
Incorrect.
in a second. That's okay. I can't always be right, Isabel. All right, so Conors Road, of course, is in your neighborhood as well. You can see from the photos here, I'll start in the bottom right. That is the intersection of 95th Avenue with Conors Road. And you can see some of the road work in that photo taken last, I think it was October, it's completed now, but there's a few patchy areas where we have to do what's called full depth reconstruction of roadway. And that's where we dig out the entire roadway and put it back. We have a few localized areas to do at that intersection this year, very small, a little bit of concrete work, I think, on one of the islands, and some curb and gutters, very, very minor again, just to finish up that intersection. We're going to talk a lot about traffic signals in this presentation, so I'll save that for later, but you can see one example, or the first example we'll show you of signals that are installed but not yet fully functional with the rail system. This particular signal is working. I'm sure you've seen that in your neighborhood. It's important to note that if you're exiting onto Conors Road at this location, there is a dedicated signal. You're not supposed to turn right on red at this location. You're required to wait until you have the green signal, and that will come. It cycles through, it senses when you're there. So I encourage you to make sure you're following that. I have seen some people using that intersection incorrectly, and it's not safe to do so. So we want to make sure people are following the dedicated signal head, the red, green, and yellow light for that right-hand. But anyways, on Conors Hill, we've got the last of the paving to do along that roadway. So that it's largely reconstructed. We just have the top lift paving to do. And of course, I'm sure you've ridden it and you've seen it's a little bit rough. We know it's rough. We are excited and encouraged that we're going to be in there fairly soon to do that top lift paving. Before we can do that, there is a concrete barrier that gets installed, very similar to what you see on any like a freeway or Whitemud Drive, for instance, that separates the roadway from the trackway. So that'll be installed first very shortly here, and then that'll be followed by the last of the paving activities. All right, I think now maybe it's the landscaping. There we go. I win one.
Quite accurate, yeah.
All right. So landscaping, as you've seen, I'm sure, along 95th Ave is largely installed, and that's really the story for most of the 13 kilometers of the alignment. Effectively, from 95th Ave going to the south along all of the roadways, that landscaping is largely installed. Most of the trees are planted, most of the shrubs. There's 20,000 shrubs. Help me out here, Isabel. Oh no, wait, I have it right in front of me. 10,000 trees and 85,000 shrubs. I always get those interchanged along the alignment. And there's also about 22,000 square meters of sod and seeding to do as well. So most of that's been done already last year. We'll of course monitor it this year, make sure it's establishing really well. If there's any of the plants that aren't thriving, we'll replace them. But it's important to understand that there's an awful lot of landscaping work to do in the parks that I was talking about before. So a lot of our landscaping this year is going to focus in the river valley. You'll see a lot of that coming to life. The previous photos we were showing, you might have noticed up on top of Conors Hill above the retaining wall, we did a lot of the reforestation work there last year. That will carry through the rest of the river valley as well. And you may have remember hearing us talk about salvaging and what's it called? But salvaging is probably the wrong word, but gathering seeds, native seeds from tree species that are in the river valley. We did that quite a few years ago. Those have been germinating and growing in nurseries around Alberta. We are now starting to take those and plant them back into the river valley. So that whole naturalization and reforestation effort began years ago. We're going to see that culminate with the planting of those trees and works this year. On to the next slide, please, Isabel. So I talked about the stop shelters a little bit, and that I'd show you some more pictures of public art. This is at Strathern Stop, so you probably have seen this, and as you've walked down the sidewalk, you've seen the birds in the one photo, and you can see the deer in the other. I think there's maybe some elk, I can't recall now. This is called Of Birds and Such. That's the name of the art. I don't have the name of the artist. It's not available to me at the moment. It's probably available online. But we're partnering with the Edmonton Arts Council and various artists that they've selected to install glass art like you see this at many of the stops along the alignment. And this is just the one that's in Strathern. There's another one down in Bonnie Doon that's very colorful. So they all kind of are a different theme, but they're all meant to just create some visual interest, give you something really interesting to look at while you're waiting for the train to come. And of course, as I mentioned before, you can see that these are enclosed shelters. They'll be heated for you. The yellow strips, maybe you're wondering what that is. That's an attenuation device. It's meant to allow for visually impaired people to be able to feel that they're approaching the edge of the platform. It's rough. It's got the knobby little round circles that allow you to feel that you're getting close to the edge. So yeah, you'll see some of that final work happening, and the rest of this art being installed along the alignment. Some of the other art, I'll encourage you, we don't have pictures of it, but I'll encourage you to watch for is some of these shelters have sculptures that are mounted on the ceiling or on the roof above the stop. I know that happens down in the mud art at the stop there, so watch for that. It's I believe it's kind of like a leafy pattern. I'm probably not giving it justice of what it's really called, but watch for that. It's going to be really intriguing to see that. If you've been in the downtown area, in the Chinatown area towards 102 Avenue and 95th Street, the structure where the tunnel comes out of the ground there, we're in the midst of installing the new Chinese gate there. Really beautiful red and yellow, red and gold actually structure. It's just really come into life there. There's some nice parks that'll get built around there too. So anywhere you go along the 13 kilometers of the alignment, you're starting to see those finishing beautification type things come to life, and we're really happy to show that off. And then of course you're going to see trains running right away, and I think that's where I'm going next. I'm going to hand it off to Eric here. Let's see if I get this one right. It'll be two. I guess it'll be 2 for 3. All right, there we go. All right, Eric, it's your turn. I'm going to turn it over to you. Take the folks through testing and commissioning.
Yeah, there you go. Good job, Dallas. Thank you very much. It's very interesting stuff. So if we can, right now what you're looking at is the inside of the LRV vehicle. It's a really interesting thing. When you walk inside, it's very spacious. And notice in front, you've got the window that actually you can go and see where the driver is going. So you can really look all around, and really clean. Of course, there's a door that closes that cabin where the driver is located, and that's for everybody's safety. You can see the modern design that we have on those trains. So really wonderful work that has been done by the team. You can go to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we're really proud of is, of course, the arrival of the 26 trains. So all the trains are home now in Edmonton. So it's really cool. It's nice to see that they're inside of the operation maintenance facility. That's the building that you see on the right. And it's quite interesting. So there's lots of room to actually keep them inside, in order for them when they go in and out in the morning. They will be toasty warm, and they don't need to be either warmed up in the winter before going out, or cool down before going out in the summer. So it's really intended to minimize the amount of work in order for us to service those trains as quickly as possible to the rest of the system. Of course, they're made to be operating in the Edmonton environment, and that's not really a big issue there. But of course, you don't want to have someone going out and scraping the windows before it comes in, goes out into the main line. So all of those vehicles now they're in. They are coming from our facility in Kingston, where the final assembly took place. We did static testing and dynamic testing of all the trains, all the way up to 80 kilometers an hour, which is the maximum speed that those trains can generate. Now, of course, we cannot operate at 80 kilometers an hour everywhere, but they have the capability. So it's really cool and fun stuff. Now, looking at the picture of the maintenance facility, you'll notice there's a little small building that's right in front, and everybody wonders what that's for. Well, this is our AVIS system. So this is AVIS for Automatic Vehicle Inspection System. So you literally drive through a train within that facility, and you have a whole bunch of lasers and cameras and all kinds of instrumentation that takes a look at all the different critical components of the train to assure that everything is in the right position. So it's really part of our predictive maintenance approach to the system. So before we have any kind of maintenance adjustment to be done, well, we want to be able to capture it. That way it can be done at a time that's very opportune, and make sure that we maximize the comfort and the time for all of the people riding the trains. Now, the wonderful maintenance facility that you see a little bit higher up in the same picture, you'll notice that there's a series of lanes at the bottom of the picture, and you see the numbered doors there. This is basically the stabling, or where the vehicles are stored, at nighttime. And on the left-hand side, this is more for the maintenance, so where we actually bring the vehicles to have preventive maintenance and minor adjustment done as we go for the 30 years of operation of those systems. And the whole point of doing the preventive and predictive maintenance is really to make those trains last as long as possible, and to assure everybody's comfort, throughout the years of operation that we'll have out of that system. So really amazing place. You also will note, probably not very visible, but the corner of the building, and maybe we can point it out if it's possible, where the OCC is located. So we have the other corner. We have the Operation Control Center. No, the other corner. We have the Operation Control Center, which is the location where our operators will monitor the activities of the train throughout the alignment. So we do have a system that indicate the position of the trains throughout the alignment and also the state of all the major systems. So we're actually able to control the activities throughout the alignment, and to be able to take proper actions to assure everybody's safety, and also take precautionary actions when we need to do so. So really interesting stuff going there. A really big wall to show everything that's under control, and a team that will be working there. We already have the staff at that location right now, and preparing for all the works for the operation, and they're part of the testing team right now. We can go to the next slide. So as we are continuing, of course, because we now have all the vehicles, our next step is to bring the trains on the main line. So you will note that there's the cables that are overhead right now. So you've got the poles, and the cables that you see over the train and over each one of the track actually are called the overhead catenary system. So this is what carries the power in order to drive the train. So as you see those cables being installed and completed, you need to assume that there's power into these, and this is basically part of the process. We install the cables, we do the verification of the installation, and we power them up. And as we get closer to do the testing, then we'll be doing more operation in the area. So if you approach those cables, be careful, and Isabel will have a good messaging on that, on safety and precautions that need to be taken. But this is very important. Be careful. Don't go too close. Also, there's a zone where we want to make sure that people do not come and approach the vehicle as we're doing the testing. It's normal. All our staff have been informed and trained to assure the safety of everybody. So of course we will be monitoring, and if we see that someone is approaching, they will be kindly asked to leave the premises. It's for everybody's safety, because we are testing the assets and the vehicles and the system overall. And for this, you need to make sure that you choose a proper location if you need to cross, and you follow the direction and instruction of people that are in and around the testing activities. We will have placards when we're doing testing in some areas, and it's important to respect those as well, and be aware of your surroundings. So those trains are extremely silent. They are electrical trains. So you cannot rely on the fact that you will hear them coming. So you need to be really careful and look at all directions before you do that. But it's really amazing vehicles to see operating. Let's go to the next one. So part of our testing activities is, one of their very first step is actually to verify that the alignment is free and clear of any obstruction. So of course we take lots of measurements. We've got people that will be walking the line to ensure that everything is okay. And the final verification is really to take the train and do the dynamic envelope check. So those are the little devices that you see on the side of the train. No, it's not part of the normal operation, but it's really part of the testing that we do. And it's to verify the level of clearance and to revalidate all of the information and all the measurements. So it's part of that final check. So really good stuff. So as you see that the vehicle is coming in your area and equipped of that, well, you know that we're not too far behind with a train that will be running on the line, energized. So it's one of the signs that you have to look for. Now, as indicated by Dallas, we have a lot of the track, pretty much all the track installed everywhere, and you will notice that a lot of the cables are already in place. So again, assume that the power is on, because we want everybody to be safe and be in a good condition. And Isabel will provide you a very good message about the precautions that you need to take. Now, once we've done that clearance verification, then we're in the position where we can start dynamic verification of the trains. So as I said before, all of those trains have been tested in dynamic at our facility in Kingston before they came to Edmonton. But we do need to do verification of the integration of the train within the home system. And that's part of the normal verification process. We're going in depth, making sure that all of the aspects of all the elements of the system are going to be verified before we go into revenue service and then operation to provide you the service. So from that perspective, we do need to do those stages, and also we have drivers that will be operating the vehicles, and there's going to be familiarization also from an operational perspective as we're preparing for the entry in service. So we can go to, no, before we do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about signaling. So one of the interesting things that we will be doing after the dynamic verification of the vehicles is going to be, of course, the integration of the other components. So one of the very important one is the integration between the vehicle, the rest of the system elements, some of detection devices that we have inside of the track in different location, and the rail signal. So we do have that rail signal integrated with the street lights. So the system will allow detection of the train as it gets closer to the street, and understanding that, then we'll be handing over information back to the OMF, where people can actually see that the trains are being detected, and trigger the signaling devices to operate in the way that are intended. So you'll notice that there's two sets of signal lights. Maybe we can point to them, that there's a small pole on the upper. Yeah, exactly. So the pole where Isabelle is pointing is a train signal. So those are lights that are specific to the train operator. You cannot confuse them as a driver with other things, because the signals are completely different, and it's on purpose. It's really to ensure that our train driver will know what is the status and when is their turn to actually go across, or when it's time for them to stop. So that information is carried over in that information. And then we have a little bit further down near the street corner, the normal lights that is expected for you as a vehicle driver, or as a pedestrian as you're about to cross the street. So as long as everybody abide by the rules of the signals, then everybody will be fine. But part of the commissioning that we're doing is to verify that all of those systems are functioning the way they're intended. So at the beginning, we will be masking the information not to confuse people. We will have flag people that will be present in order to direct traffic. And that will allow us to do the verification of the different functionalities, which are verified in production, but need to be re-verified after they're installed in the system in situ. So really interesting stuff. It's done in a lot of detail, a lot of steps for us to ensure that everything is going to be functioning as advertised, and very interesting approach for the system. Now, all of those vehicles are also line of sight. So that means that the driver is actually operating the vehicle and is controlling that vehicles, which is somewhat different from the other systems that are in Edmonton today. So being line of sight, that means that, as a driver, they are operating in mixed traffic. They are in control of those vehicles, and they are sharing whenever they're crossing the roads with the rest of the traffic. So very important to have mutual respect when it's time to turn, and when you have your signal, as those vehicles are quite heavy, and we do need to respect that, and we want everybody to really enjoy the rides and the benefits it will bring to the overall Edmonton city. So let's go to the next one, or I think it's we're actually going to your part, Isabelle. Yes. Yeah. So Isabelle, to you, and I think you've got some really good message to give to everybody based on some of the basic explanation I provided.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Great explanation on the trains and the testing and the commissioning activities that are happening along the alignment. And in Montgomery Place, at a certain point, you're also going to end up seeing the trains near you. So the low floor train system that we're building with Valley Line Southeast differs quite a lot from the current high floor system that Edmontonians have been used to seeing and are very accustomed to seeing. There are some features that are a little bit different. And so when it comes to the train testing, we have some safety messages that some of them will be carried on into operational period that would like the public to get used to knowing and to keep themselves safe as this new system is testing and getting into commission activities. So the first one is to be aware of your surroundings and other road users and stay alert while on the road. Now, this is a photo with a great illustration of how the cars share the road with trains. This is just outside Montgomery Place, and you can see from both sides here that there will be traffic going, and then there is rail right in the middle of the road. Now, with the high floor train system, there is a designated track where the trains would go on. And I'm sure you've seen it so many times when you see the track coming and you see the crossing arms, the gates, and the bells. This won't be happening with the Valley Line Southeast. And so cars share the road with trains, and we just ask that the public stays alert. All the road users stay alert when they are on the road. The second one is do not shortcut across tracks, only cross at designated pedestrian crossings. Now, I just mentioned that the Valley Line Southeast trains do not have crossing arms, they don't have gates, they don't have bells, they don't have fences. The current high floor train system in Edmonton does have all those things. And so, for example, when you're at Kingsway, you can see the gates come down, the bells going to alert the public that the train is coming. So, with this system, since there's no gates, no bells, there's no fences, we ask that the public stays just alert and make sure that you only cross when it's safe at the designated pedestrian crossings. There have been some questions that have come in the past about what the timing is, and especially if there's anyone with mobility issues who's crossing the road. All those things are taken into consideration as we're building this line. We take into consideration the safety of all road users, the people on two wheels, the cyclists, the e-scooter riders, the pedestrians, any of them who have mobility issues, and all the road users and all the drivers and cyclists too. The third one is to always follow the direction of construction personnel and flaggers. The construction personnel and flaggers are there for your safety. They're there for the safety of all road users, and they're there for the safety of our crews. We want to make sure that everyone gets to their destination safe. We want to make sure that our staff and our crews get home safe to their families as well after a hard day at work. And so if you see a construction personnel or one of the flaggers telling you to stop, to go, they already have information on something that is maybe there's going to be something moving or a couple of people moving something. And so we ask that you just follow their direction as they are there for your safety at all periods of time. And they're there for the safety pedestrians, cyclists, e-scooter riders, and even drivers as well. The fourth one is to always follow traffic and pedestrian signs and signals. Just like Eric and Dallas have mentioned previously, there have been a lot of signals that have been installed along the entire 13-kilometer alignment. And some of them are not active at this moment, and some of them are. And then in some cases, like in this case, you'll see that there is a stop sign and a no left turn sign here. And so we just ask that the public follows the traffic and the pedestrian signals that we have put in place at the different areas located along the alignment. Once again, these signals and these signs, all the signage that we put up is there for your safety. It's there for the safety of our crews as well, to make sure that we all get to our destinations in one piece. And the fifth one is to be aware that coming into contact with live overhead wires can lead to serious injury or death. So we ask that you keep all high-reaching devices such as ladders, outdoor banner light installation poles, drones, and remote-controlled planes away from the energized overhead wires. So one thing is that the energized overhead wires are already energized at the different areas along the 13-kilometer alignment. And we ask that the public always assumes, just like Eric and Dallas have mentioned, always assume that these are energized, because coming into contact with them is very dangerous. And so if you're out maybe taking a walk and you happen to see somebody on the street who is maybe flying a drone or trying to install something, and you can see the danger of them coming into contact with one of these wires. We ask that the public helps us to tell them that it is dangerous, to tell them that these overhead wires are energized. We are sending out as much information to the public to let them know, to let all our stakeholders know that the trains are testing, the overhead wires are live, and that they need to keep away from them. And so we just ask that this information keeps being passed on through conversations and through even just when you're walking around the street, like I mentioned, and you happen to see maybe somebody flying a drone that's near one of the overhead wires. And with that, we shall move on to questions. I really like this photo. This is a great photo of the city, and it's taken from somewhere near the Watna Bridge, actually. For the questions, once again, I've seen a few that have come in, but if you'd like to submit a question or a comment, if you're on your phone or your tablet, just go to the bottom of the screen. You'll see a Q&A, and if you just tap on that, you'll be able to submit your question or comment. And if you're on your desktop or laptop, you have to exit full screen mode, and on your top left corner, you'll see a Q&A that will be there. If you click on that, then you'll be able to type in your question or your comment. So let's dive into these questions. Dallas, I have one of your favorite questions that's going to come up. I'm sure you can already tell what it is.
Yeah, I can probably
When will
guess.
this be operational?
Yeah, that is a great question, and of course, I get that probably at least a couple times a week for sure. What I can tell you first is, and we mentioned it before, a few of us, that TransEd is around for 30 years, and we're going to be operating this system for 30 years. So our highest priority is safety, and our second highest priority is the quality of the system that we're delivering to the city and the citizens of Edmonton. We want to make sure that whatever we turn over, or when we turn it over, is, first of all, meets all of the contractual specifications. And I mean, there's lots of that, of course there is, but we really want to make sure that it's completely functional. The last thing we want to do is turn something on, welcome passengers on board, and then be faced with a bunch of challenges that we could have solved previously. So that can take time. The work that Eric and his team are doing right now to do this commissioning is it's very involved. I don't think people realize the amount of effort that goes into testing every single cable, every single connection that I talked about, and there are thousands of them, to make sure everything is communicating the way it's supposed to, and that takes time. I did drop some hints. You may have picked up on some of those early in the presentation. We've got a lot of work to do still in the River Valley to reestablish the shared use pathway underneath the Watnow Bridge. We've got work to do in the Louise McKinney and Henry Edinburgh parks. All of that is going to take all of this summer to complete and into the fall. So with that combined with the last of the paving work, I mean, there is certainly some civil related work or road work related stuff that we have to do. It really comes down to some of those final touches and the testing and commissioning that Eric and his team are doing. Right now, we are targeting to have the train welcoming passengers before the end of the year, and we're working really hard to make that happen. There's always things that sometimes are outside of our control. The pandemic, of course, is the biggest one that's right now very difficult to predict the impacts that can have. We've been successful in being able to stay operational largely within our industry, and we're thankful for that, but that can change at any given time. And of course, it's Edmonton. Everywhere has weather, but it seems like Edmonton's weather must be worse. I don't know what it is, but there's always the unpredictability of weather that can impact us as well. So just know that, number one, we want to deliver a system that's exactly what was demanded by the city and that we're proud to hand over, that's going to function well for 30 years, and we're working hard to make that happen by the end of this year.
Great. Thanks, Dallas. The next question is for Michelle. Will the ticket price be the same as the existing LRT?
Good question, and I can provide a partial answer. My understanding today is it will be the standard price set by ETS. However, with the Smart Fare program being phased in, I don't know at this time if the pricing may change a bit. And that's something that we can try and get some more information on for everyone.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Michelle. Next question for Eric. Will the signal slow down traffic?
So really, it's not intended to slow down traffic. You know, the key design element is for vehicles to operate in mixed traffic. So we're going with the flow of the traffic. So we do have some zone where there's a priority, but others, we're just part of the rest of the traffic, and we're just moving along with the rest of the vehicle traffic. So it's not expected that there's going to be any substantial change to the traffic flow. If anything, if everybody actually is using the train, you're probably going to be seeing people that will prefer taking the train so they don't have to drive, and they basically can read a book, talk to someone over the phone, or even start their day, on the train. So from that perspective, it may actually make traffic be a little bit better.
Great answer, Eric. Encourage people to use public transit. Next question is for Dallas. So how are the for-profit partners recovering their investments and turning a profit?
Okay, so I assume that means then Transed as a whole. So that's a good question. Don't get that one very often, but I'm happy to answer it. I think it's important to understand, first of all, that the city sets the ticket fares, as Michelle was saying, that really doesn't impact Transed and our ability to turn a profit. Now, obviously, we're not here to do it for free, but the way it's set up for the public to understand is based on a service that is being provided at the request of the city and at a level of service that's requested by the city. So the city has the freedom to make those changes as they deem necessary, depending on ridership and what they request and desire. I mean, even things as basic as, we've got Edmonton Football Club games or an Edmonton Oilers games that are going to increase ridership during peak periods. There's a mechanism within our contract in partnership with the city where the city will request more frequency of trains, and Transed is compensated accordingly. So when we look at all of these different service levels, we also recognize that obviously that takes a certain number of individuals and a workforce to be able to deliver the service that's being requested of us. And that's everything from customer service, the maintenance, the train drivers themselves, and the office personnel and the people in the control room. So all of that is factored into what it takes to meet the service level that's being asked by the city. We are taking the risk for the next 30 years of having that correct. So that price was set when the job was tendered and bid 5 years ago. So we're hopeful that will be a profitable scenario for the next 30 years. But regardless of even if it's not, there's still contractual obligations to provide the level of service that is being asked, and we will commit to doing that, even if it means losing money and not turning a profit. So we're here for the long haul, and Edmontonians are going to benefit from the service that the city is asking, and we are going to deliver that.
Great answer. The next question is for Eric. What speed will the trains travel at?
That's a very nice question. I like it to go very fast, but actually it's, again, it's mixed traffic. So it will follow the speed of the traffic, really. And we do have some zones where we're going to be able to go at higher speed. Namely Davies Elevated. In that section, we're going to be able to go close to 80 kilometers an hour. And that really is designed for that. So it will allow us to do some catch up and other things.
Just to be clear, though, that just for clarity, Eric, when we talk about Davies Elevated section, that is the portion in the center that I talked about where the park and ride is and the Davies station is.
That's
the reason the train travels faster is only because it's separated from traffic. It's able to do that safely. The minute it interfaces with traffic on either end of that elevated structure, it comes down to match the speed of the road traffic adjacent to the train.
Absolutely. So I was about to say that, but thank you for bringing that on.
Stole your thunder.
Yeah, no worries. It's okay. It's everybody's thunder. So really, the objective here is to go with the traffic flow and to drive to the speed limits that are posted throughout the alignment. So we're not really going to try and move faster than the posted limit there.
Okay.
I think just before you go on to the next question, Isabel, I want to highlight something that people maybe have picked up on just by looking around and seeing what's being constructed. But when we talk about with traffic, like this train is not like you may have seen in Europe where it's a streetcar system where you could literally see a car pull in front of the train and come to a traffic light at an intersection and stop, and the train has to wait behind it. The train does not drive, or the cars don't drive on the same concrete in our case, as the train. They are separate. Now they're very close together. They're sharing the same road right of way, but they're not in the same alignment. And some of the ways that the design has been intentionally applied is to separate the color of the concrete from the color of the roadway. So we've actually intentionally, in a lot of zones, made that trackway colored concrete distinctly different from the asphalt color, so that as a driver is driving down the road and they make a turn, they recognize when they're no longer on the roadway and actually either crossing and hopefully never driving along the trackway for the train. The other things that we've got is there is still a curb. It's called a semi-mountable curb in a lot of areas. For instance, along the 83rd Street area, you'll know as a driver that I'm not supposed to be crossing that curb. It's not. It's meant to separate. That's not another lane. I can't drive where the track is. But it's also there so that vehicles such as emergency vehicles, fire trucks, that sort of thing, can drive out and around a vehicle that is necessary. So if a car is broken down on a roadway, for instance, on 95th Avenue, if the fire truck needs to get around them, they can do that. They can mount on top of that semi-mountable curb, go around the vehicle and come back down onto the lane. So all of that's been considered. There's still, of course, very similar interactions when it comes to train fairly close to sidewalks. There is separations created by landscaping in the vast majority of those areas, and it may not seem like it right now to be very significant, but when those plants grow to their mature size, that creates a barrier in and of itself. There is a few localized areas, Conors Hill is one of them, where there is a fence separation, and that's primarily, primarily because of the SUP trail on a slope where you may have a cyclist that's traveling at a greater rate of speed that needs a bit more protection in case they were to veer off into the track. So the curbs, the landscaping, the color of the concrete is all set up in a way and designed intentionally to create that safe separation. And then I can't say it often enough, if you follow the pedestrian traffic signals and if you follow the red, green, and yellow lights for a driver, you're going to be safe. Our drivers that are driving the trains are doing the exact same thing, and they have the ability to put on the brakes if they need to. We want to make sure people just aren't taking shortcuts. I mean, some people just, I'll use the word lazy. Some people are lazy. They don't want to walk to the next crosswalk. There's lots of crosswalks along the alignment. There's dedicated ones that aren't even at an intersection that are provided along the alignment to allow people to get across, to try and avoid the desire, I'll call it, I guess, of somebody to take a shortcut. And even when you look at those, they're designed in a way that forces you, as you're approaching that pedestrian crossing, and they're called mid-block ones. So this typically doesn't happen at an intersection, but it does happen a lot at a mid-block crosswalk. And as you approach that crossing, there's railings in front of you that force you to kind of do a little S curve across the track. And that is forcing you to turn your body in the direction of the track, to, whether you realize it, to actually see if a train is coming. To Eric's point, the trains are so quiet, we want people to be aware of their surroundings, and that sometimes requires you to use your eyes and actually see something. So when you're forced to turn to make that crossing over the tracks, you might see a train coming, and that's all designed intentionally to create that that movement of the human body to face the train. Just wanted to add that.
Great. It's a little bit of an insight to Dallas's mind. It's pretty interesting.
Weaves, it turns. It's
yeah. Another question for you, Dallas, is the project on track for budget? And if it isn't, are you able to disclose any of the variances?
I can tell you that Edmontonians and the city will report this as well as on budget. I can't speak to how Transit is doing, but I can certainly speak to how the city's budget is and the way this P3 is set up. It's some people call it a hard dollar, and right now it's on budget for the city's perspective. Yeah.
Great. And there was a comment here about future designs maybe considering elevation for tracks for less traffic interference and faster speeds. This is just maybe you could give some insight as to if Michelle maybe, or Dallas or Eric, why we chose at-grade transit for the LRT rather than elevated.
I think I'll let Michelle take the first stab at this one, if she's still on and not muted.
I'm here. I'm pondering. You know, a number of years ago, the city was really looking at the city as a whole and decided that the best approach would be what they call a suburban system, so urban style LRT, which means building smaller scale stations that are spaced closer together, integrated into community, providing some better links into a greater number of destinations with more direct transit, pedestrian and cyclist connections, and to really maximize openness of space to create a space environment. You know, investing in landscaping, streetscaping, and some of the architectural features that improve visual appeal. So that's really the approach that the city is now looking into. They also are very interested in having transit accessible for communities within the city while promoting some development, and all the while balancing mobility needs with traffic flow.
Great. It's a great answer, Michelle. And on that note, we got a thank you to everyone for answering the questions. And I think everyone on the call is looking forward to the operational time of the train, as we are, all of us are. And
Yes.
if you have any more concerns or any clarifications or questions that you have, please feel free to reach out to us through our website, transitlrt.ca, or you can call us on 780-224-0964, or you can email us at info@transitlrt.ca. Thank you so much for attending this virtual open house for Montgomery Place. Thank you to Eric, Dallas, Michelle for joining us and sharing their knowledge with us. And at the end of this presentation, there will be a survey. Please take the time to fill it out. We do love to hear from the public on how we can make these presentations better and how we can deliver information about the project that is valuable to you in different kinds of avenues that actually do reach you. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.